Well, great Saturday morning, everyone. I am sports mental health empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. You know who that guy is. That's my amazing co-host, Ronnie Ransome Jr. This is House Talk Pregame. Happy hot as blazes Saturday, everybody.
I heard yesterday at 7 a.m. it was 97 degrees down there.
Look at here. Look, I pulled the weather up because I said, you know what? I'm about to share this with the folk. So it's 87 right now. At 10 a.m. It's Central Time. It's 87. Our high today is 95. Tomorrow is gonna be 97. Monday 100, Tuesday 100, Wednesday 100, Thursday 102, Friday 105, Saturday 104, Sunday 105, and Monday 103. And let me just tell you, Ronnie, don't be passing out. And the heat index is averaging 6 to 7 degrees higher than what the actual temperature is. But here's the kicker. It was trivia for me because I was like, ooh, So they were saying on the news that if you have pets, bring your pets in the house to keep them cool. If you don't have to be outside, don't go outside in the height of the day. If you have to be outside, you need to be taking heat breaks and keeping yourself hydrated and what have you. But this is what blew my mind, Ronnie. They said, do not walk your pets at the height of the day because the grass will be 110 degrees. The concrete will get up to 140 degrees and asphalt will get up to 160 degrees. So basically, here in the DFW Metroplex, you could cook your breakfast on the sidewalk.
Literally.
Because it is hot. And here's the thing. I'm totally in touch with my Caribbean DNA. And I love the heat. I absolutely positively love the heat. Of course, my husband says it's because I don't have to be outside in it. But why are you bringing up old stuff?
Goodness gracious.
I would rather be hot than cold. Even with temperatures, I would rather be hot than cold. But y'all, it's hot in the Metroplex. It's far.
I don't know. See, today it's a smooth 77 here today in Virginia, but this entire week, I kid you not, like I forgot what day it was during the week, but it was maybe Monday or Tuesday night at 10, 11 o'clock at night. It was still 85 degrees, but the heat.
And that was the night you texted me and you was talking. You were like, to keep my heat to myself.
Right. I mean, I'm like, man, look, I don't play football no more. So when you say heat break, I laugh because I wish we could have had a heat break in practice. Yeah.
You being invaded by Eli.
Yeah, Eli, you want everybody who's listening, somebody had a birthday yesterday, actually.
Happy birthday, man.
Turn the big one. World, this is Eli. Eli, say hi to the world right now. You're live. Tell everybody you had a birthday yesterday. Yeah, I turned the big one. I've been here for 365 days. But see, America out there listening, see, Eli wasn't born until 12:34 p.m. So I didn't tell him happy birthday till 12:34. So because you're not about to get the whole day. He got half a day. So
that's all he got.
All right, sir. We're gonna finish to the people. Yeah. Bye. I was a 1-year-old. Yeah.
Say peace.
Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. But yeah, so the heat in Virginia was disrespectful all week. But today, this weekend, actually, for Father's Day weekend, I think the highs is going to be at 78 for the next 3 days. So I'm looking forward to that temperature break because there's no way in the world I could be down there in them temperatures right now.
It's all good. But you know what, though? We have trade winds. I became intimately acquainted with trade winds when I was living in Barbados because we had the Northeast trade winds all the time. So the trade winds it's like, even though it's really, really, really hot, there's always a really, really nice breeze blowing. And yes, sometimes the air that it's blowing is hotter than others, but there's always a really, really, really nice breeze blowing. So if you're fortunate enough to be in the shade, though you're outside, it doesn't feel really bad. At least to me, it doesn't. I'm sure there's other people like Dr. It's crazy and lost their mind. But I love it.
I'm not gonna say you lost your mind, but I will say maybe at some points, maybe it's just on break, at certain
Mine is on break.
It might just be on break. I'm not gonna say you lost it, but it might just went on break. A little quick little 15.
It's overheated. maybe it's overheated.
Might just need to cool off a little bit.
My radiator needs some antifreeze.
But it's all good. It's all good because it's Juneteenth weekend. It's Father's Day weekend. I don't think it's any other type of weekend, but it's definitely a great weekend if for where you're at. Outside of it being, scorching hot in the Midwest, it seems like, we're gonna make it do what it gotta do. We have a great topic lined up for everybody today, Dr. Pitts. And believe it or not, I believe we are supposed to be having a guest coming on towards the end of the show that we're really excited about. He's coming on for a little bit, but we're definitely gonna have him back on later on, maybe next season. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we do have a special topic today called Check or Carry On, the impact of emotional baggage on athletic performance. Your ability to master your emotions gives you the power to use emotions as tools to facilitate individual and team performance rather than weapons that hurt you and your team. So we always talk about emotional intelligence, emotional baggage all the time on this show. So we're going to talk more about that and how you can, since this is the off season, NBA just ended 2 days ago. So it's the off season for the majority of the sports right now. Shout out to the Warriors for winning. So it's kind of the off season for a lot of sports right now. So one of the great things to do also during the off season, not only to, get your body prepared physically, but mentally as well. We'll always talk about, some of the things you should think about going into a season, mentally, physically, and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about the emotional side of that, some things that you maybe should think about for preparing for your season and how you can manage, best manage your emotional responses and regulations, depending on whatever age you're at, whether it's little league, high school, college, professional, whatever the case may be. So we're going to be talking about that on top of, we always have our mental health tip of the week. Dr. Pitts has a great one. I may or may not piggyback and steal off from her mental health tip of the week. We'll see. And then we also have some HBCU news to share. So, and remember, as you all know, we are live right now on Facebook. So you can check us out on Facebook Live every Saturday at 11, but you can also check us out on HSRN every Saturday as well at this very same time at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as 10 p.m. on Saturdays. And also on Sundays, you can check us out at Sundays at 6 p.m. And remember, HSRN is empowering the HBCU family's head, heart, and hands to deliver the impact we all know it can. So not only continue to support our show and boost us up, but also check out all the other great shows we have lined up on HRSN for you as well. So make sure you check those out, support them, help them out as well, just like you all do for us each and every Saturday and Sunday. So, all right, Dr. Pitts, you got your mental health tip of the week ready?
I do. I said that even though May is over, that I still wanted to, that I was going to continue to just highlight first and foremost the awareness line and just reminding folks that, we're living in very, very challenging times. And when you're living in times such as these, it does have a tendency to adversely impact mental wellness, right? And particularly when you're faced with the magnitude of tragedy that we're seeing literally all over the country right now, it can really take folks to a very, very low place in their emotional well-being, such that they start to have suicide ideation. They may even go as far as to have a plan. So I think that it's really important to continue to highlight awareness around suicide, because suicide is a leading cause of death in the United States and a major public health concern. When a person dies by suicide, the effects are felt by family, friends, and communities. So the Institute of Mental Health has a wealth of information, and you can go to the website to get that additional information so that you have the education and the empowerment about how to help, about the warning signs, so that you can have a better understanding of ways to help prevent suicide, as well as effective treatment options that are available for you and or a loved one. If you know someone in crisis, or if you yourself are in crisis, you can dial 911 in an emergency or call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And you can call that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or you can use the Lifeline chat at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Lifeline is free, confidential, and available to everyone. So my mental health tip of the week, Ronnie, is really around, it's around relationships, right? And it's the understanding that, well, let me say this first. I want to go this route because, and I really haven't said anything about it on the show, but starting next Saturday, the 25th of June, on the fourth Saturday of every month, we're going to be offering a relationship enrichment group from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via Zoom. We are not going to be taking that group live. It is going to be a more intimate setting, but you can register for the relationship enrichment group. It is free. Let me just go ahead and put that out there. At this time, at some point in time, after our first year of conducting the group, we want to see if it gains traction and how people respond to it before we decide if we want to start charging a small fee to participate, because the information that's going to be coming forth is going to be powerful. We're not running that group as a clinical group. We're running that group more as a group where we can just have some open, honest adult conversation. So you have to be at least 18 years of age to participate in that group. I will tell you now, put the disclaimer out there, is raw. It's going to be raw. We're not sugarcoating anything. Not sugarcoating anything, because life doesn't sugarcoat anything. The information, the conversation, it's going to be a dialogue. It's not just going to be me talking or Ronnie talking or anybody else. We're literally going to all have group discussion around everything and anything pertaining to relationships. So we're gonna be talking about all of it, life and love and sex and intimacy and contention and hatred and bitterness and unforgiveness and low self-esteem and craziness. We're gonna talk about all of it. We're gonna talk about all of it, and we're gonna have some real grown-up, put the hay down where the goats can get it conversation about life, love, and relationships. You can register for the relationship enrichment group on my website at drlaurendpitts.com. Just go under the events tab and you can register for it. Again, it is free, but we need to stay aware of how many spots we have, so that we're keeping track of how many people are going to be in the group. But to that end, Ronnie, that's the vein that I want to discuss my mental health tip, as it ties into our topic for today. Mm-hmm. In this work that we do, Ronnie, when we're working with individuals and couples, we hear a lot of chatter about relationships, right? Particularly most of the time intimate ones. And folks relationship hopping. Folks are in Walmart, in the grocery store, in the club, searching for a mate. They searching for their husband. They searching for their next Mrs. Whatever. And what's become apparent to us, and we talk about this all the time, is that people aren't giving themselves time to heal. They're literally taking their little red wagon, their wheelbarrow, their pickup truck, their 50-foot liftgate truck with a semi, and then the tractor and trailers full of baggage from one relationship to the next. And what ends up happening is, with each failed relationship, they're picking up more and more and more and more baggage. But Ronnie, what people fail to realize is they're the common denominator in every relationship that they're in, right? And how many times have we done this work and heard people talk about all men are dogs, or all women are hoes, or all women are gold diggers, or all dudes just want to have their cake and eat it too. But the bottom line is that, and we know this to be true because we work, everybody doesn't come to us because they have a mental health issue, right? There's a bunch of reasons why people come into therapy, but people are hurting. People want healthy, loving, and fulfilling relationships. And we hear that all day, every day, right? And people think that there's no good candidates. You know, the dating apps are trash and superficial, and, you know, folks are not even coming forth as their authentic self a lot of the times. So people are losing hope, and they're talking about settling and thinking that having standards makes them somehow a bad person. But here's the thing. Here's the essence of the tip. Ronnie, partners come and go, but you have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. You can't divorce yourself. You can't break up with yourself. You have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. Your relationship with yourself is severely underdeveloped. And we see this every single solitary day in our work. Your relationship with yourself is underdeveloped. People are so broken, so wounded, so devastated by the adverse childhood experiences that they've had and by the traumas that they've endured, that they're just not healthy, whole individuals. And they keep entering into these relationships that are fractured at the foundation. So you can't have a healthy anything with a jacked up foundation. But what would happen if you invested the most in a very healthy, positive, and productive way in your relationship with yourself? What if you nurtured your relationship with yourself the way you poured out your heart and soul on this partner that you think is your next husband, or on this partner that you think is your next wife, or on this partner that's going to be your next baby mama, or on your partner that's going to be your next baby dad? We put so much of ourselves into other people, and it's to the point of depletion of ourselves. But if you held yourself humbly, graciously, and respectfully in the same regard that you hold others, it may be instrumental in helping you to be more selective in who you select as a partner and what you tolerate and your ability to have effective boundaries. My mental health tip is invest in your relationship with yourself. And learning how to do that effectively will be instrumental in helping you to better nurture healthy relationships with others, because you are the common denominator in every relationship that you have. And if the denominator is jacked up, that means the foundation is jacked up. And the foundation is you.
That's deep. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Something I always say to people is, you can't expect love from somebody who doesn't know how to love themselves.
That's right.
Because we're I think oftentimes when people, to your point, when they don't know how to love themselves and care for themselves wholeheartedly, spiritually, physically, emotionally, all those things, where do you draw those expectations from?
That's right.
If you're not, and not, granted, I think, as people learn to love themselves, they can definitely, have expectations outside of what they do for themselves, because, there's only so much you can do for yourself, and having a partner definitely enhances that. But if you don't know how to communicate those needs to a partner, or you don't know how to hold those healthy boundaries with a partner, your relationship will definitely struggle, and you'll definitely have those issues.
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, one of my coworkers actually, they just got engaged, and I asked her, I was like, well, are you going to do premarital counseling? And she was like, well, we don't really go to church like that. And I was like, well, you don't have to have a pastor to do premarital counseling.
No.
I was like, I know that's the stigma and the stereotype that you go to a pastor for premarital counseling, but
you don't.
You can go to a full therapist for
couple
that.
marriage and family therapist.
So, and the reason I always tell people, whatever baggage you have individually, like if you don't figure it out before you say I do, you will have to figure it out eventually.
Say
Like,
that.
you know, and I think people don't realize when you say I do in a marriage, like you're not, yeah, you're saying I do to that person, but I don't think they realize like what exactly you're saying I do to. You're saying I do to that entire individual being, everything that
All
they
them bricks.
everything that comes with them, the
Yeah.
family, the history, the
Yeah.
associations, the influences, all of that. When you say I do, you're saying I do to all of that, not just the individual. I know people can sit there and say, oh, well, I'm just saying I do to them. I'm not saying I do to their family. Nope.
Okay. Keep thinking that if you wanna. We call that a cognitive distortion.
Exactly. And so I think it's important for people to understand, like, you know, you have to have an awareness about yourself.
That's right.
To be able to know exactly what it is you need. And I think if you were not given that opportunity as a child to really explore yourself and really, you know what it means to be who you are, learn how to love yourself, learn how to have that confidence, that self-esteem, you know, just that awareness about yourself. If you have not learned that, I always tell people when you turn 18, you are the author and illustrator of your life. If it wasn't shown to you, it is yours and yours only responsibility to learn it. To
your actions to take.
To learn how to create those healthy spaces for you to learn that, to unlearn and relearn the healthier options, the healthier ways, the healthier coping skills, the healthier communication skills, the conflict resolution skills, the interpersonal skills. All it is your responsibility to learn these things. Because I can tell you one thing right now. You get in a relationship and you don't figure them out, and then you get married and you don't figure them out. Don't have a kid, you're gonna have to figure it out.
Facts.
Right? So, and to your point, we were talking about something off the air about one of your clients, and one of the things you mentioned was how frustrated he gets at, you know, his nephew, I believe, you know, for some of the things that he just doesn't know. And when you were saying it, I was like, I can't tell you how many parents get frustrated at their children, because children will show you your flaws.
What?
You'll get
like that. Look.
And you'll get mad at the child because the child, I think sometimes parents want the kids to figure out something that they haven't figured out themselves, because that's one less thing I have to worry about. That's one less responsibility I got to tend to. In all reality, I always tell people, you can run forever. You can run for years.
That's right.
But the moment you stop, that baggage is going to be right behind you. They don't care how old you get, how long you run, how much stamina
you take
got.
you with you. You can't escape yourself.
The moment, and to our topic, you know, your carry on and stuff like that. You know, no matter where you go, if you don't address it and leave it where it needs to be, you just carry it with you. And eventually, hey, look, planes got a limit.
Say it. You know, look, you can't put that big old carry-on bag on the overhead compartment and it don't fit under the seat.
So I think people, you know, take the time to. I get it, and I'm speaking in Dr. because I'm pretty sure you can agree with this too. I created every excuse scenario in my head as why you can't do something, why I don't have enough time to do this, why I don't have time to do that. I think the one thing that as humans that we, now I'm not going to say ignorantly, but willfully lean on is that, oh, well, I don't have all the time in the world. Well, yeah, I can't sit there and guarantee you the next day or the next week or the next month. I cannot guarantee you that, but I can guarantee you this moment right now. And in this moment right now, if you can do in this moment right now what you should do to be the best version of yourself, then that's how you should look at it, by a moment by moment basis. Not day by day, not week by week, not month by month or year by year, but moment by moment, because that's
one decision at a time.
It's all we're guaranteed. I can't guarantee, and that's one thing I always tell my clients, like, you can't go back and fix the past and you can't control the future, but you can do something right now.
That's right.
You can do something right now that if the world were to end right now, you might be able to have peace with this moment right now in this moment.
That's right.
The other moments, we can work on that. We can work on finding peace and acceptance for those past moments. But this current moment that you're missing because you're so focused on the past or the future, this current moment will become a past moment that you wish in the future you could have appreciated.
How about, that's good. That's real.
So be careful. Be careful.
Enjoy the process.
You have to,
good, bad, or indifferent. Enjoy the process.
You have to fall in love with the process, because the results don't give you that satisfaction.
That's right.
The results validate the process that you went upon.
Right. And then you
Right.
mess around and get to the end result, and then you've got is this all there is?
Yep.
Because you hyped it up so much that you didn't even realize that, you know what, I don't even want this. And we talk about that all the time, right? Be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it.
Yep.
People think that they want it, right? People think that they want to be married. I guess I ain't even gonna lie, I guess you can hear it. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm 25. Oh my gosh, I'm 27. And my biological clock is ticking. And I found that the past 2 weeks, Ronnie, the past 2 weeks, I've been saying, okay, you think about this, like really, really, really stretching people's rubber band, that you can't even deal with yourself. You are not in a place of heightened self-awareness. You cannot even deal with yourself. You don't even know yourself. How in the heck do you think you're going to be able to handle a husband or a wife and some children? Are you kidding me? You're not ready. Trust me when I tell you, you're not ready.
Me and one of my good friends were having this conversation a couple of days ago, and his premise was that he feels like in our community we hold marriage higher than village. And because he asked me, he was like, he asked me, he was like, if you strip away the title of a marriage from your relationship, what do you have? And for me, I was like, I mean, well, I view, and I guess we can spend maybe 4 or 5 minutes on this real quick, because I think it's important. I think in our community,
and it ties in, truth be told, it ties into the baggage.
Exactly.
It totally ties into the baggage.
Exactly. And he made a great point, because to your point, you hear so many, I think when we look at like generational tradition and stuff like that, I think it's safe to say that, for the baby boomers and things like that, people from 1947 through 64, 65, like being married early and having kids early and having a family and being established by 25, 30 was the penultimate goal. But the world and the way they viewed the world was also a lot different. Nowadays, people, and to your point, I think one of the things to keep in mind is, I think the dynamics of roles have changed a lot too. So when we think about people, rushing to get married and things like that, well, what is marriage to you?
Right.
Like what does the title of marriage hold for you for your relationship? Because if that is the end all be all for your relationship, well then, I mean, you might be disappointed, because I always tell people, like, when we think about the word marriage now, all marriage really is, from I guess a societal standpoint, is a contract between two people.
The relationship contract. It's
exactly.
Spiritually, it's a covenant. Secularly, it's a relationship contract. You're under contract to
your point,
person to get on all your nerves.
I don't know how. Now, I'm not old enough to really know this transition or when this societal shift happened, but to your point, when we think about marriage from a religious standpoint, it is a covenant. It is a commitment between two people. It's a joining, a union amongst two people. Yeah, if that's what your relationship is based off of, okay, cool. But when we think about from a societal standpoint, it's a business contract. We join. I can
tell you when it changed. Historically, I can tell you when we noticed a shift in how people viewed marriage and how people viewed the structure of the nuclear family. World War II. Because at that time, women had to go in the workforce. Women were in the factories helping to make the war materials, whether it was, the ships or ammunition or whatever the case may be. It went from women being housewives and caregivers to the children and maintaining the home, to husbands and sons being off fighting the war, and women having, because of a need for manpower, women having to come out of the homes and go into the workforce to help be able to take care of things that needed to be taken care of for the war. And then in our communities, we saw this breakdown in the nuclear family, that really began to take greater shape in the 50s and the 60s. And then as we're approaching up to the Vietnam War, where not only are the Black and brown men and boys going off to war, but now we're seeing an escalation in the drug epidemic in our communities, because we got all these Learjets and yachts to bring all these drugs into our communities. Now we're seeing this influx of, and we know that it started during the Harlem Renaissance, right? It started back in the 20s and 30s when we're seeing this influx of drugs. But by the time we get to the 60s, it's like our communities are saturated with drugs. And we have the Vietnam War going on. And we have an escalation in incarceration of Black and brown boys and men. So in the Black and brown communities, the nuclear family was shattered. Right now, I believe the last statistic that I saw just a couple of days ago was almost 80% of homes in Black and brown communities all across the country are single parent households. You have to work.
And it's crazy with that number. Black people still have the highest rate of 2-parent homes in the country.
I'm not surprised by that.
Which is crazy when you think about, like, we only represent maybe 14% of the entire population. We have the highest single parent and highest 2-parent households, which is
it's almost like an oxymoron, right?
Yeah.
But what it suggests is that we have the example of the fact that it can be done, but we also have the example that suggests that there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done. How do we reconcile that?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile it? And what's unfortunate about it is, do I believe that it can be reconciled? I do. And what's so interesting, that and I'm hoping I dropped the ball. I did not follow up again to make sure, but I do believe that our guest is still going to be able to join us. I believe that line of conversation that we just had speaks to exactly what he's going to discuss when he joins us today, and the mindset that exists in Black and brown communities, and how that's keeping us in this perpetual cycle of despair that's eroding the fiber of our homes and our communities. Ronnie, let's go ahead. I know we had some HBCU news. Let's put that out there at the very, very end if we have time. I want to jump into this discussion because it's such a powerful discussion, and I want to make sure that we're already in the groove at the top of the hour when we're joined by our guests.
All right, yeah. So definitely, so kind of, staying in tune with this conversation when we talk about, emotional intelligence and things like that. So I kind of wanted, lay the groundwork and foundation for our listeners out there who might not, they might have heard of emotional intelligence or emotional IQ or whatever the case may be. So let's actually, kind of give the foundation and the background for this, and then kind of expand on it, because like I said, I think for every single individual human, if emotional intelligence wasn't something that was taught to you or modeled for you growing up, it is your responsibility as an adult to learn this emotional intelligence, because it is imperative not only for you as an individual, but for society, for humans as we interact with each other. We have to be able to find a way to interact within harmony and unison in some way, shape, or form. Not all the time. Granted, obviously, everybody's different. Everybody's unique in their own situation. So obviously there will be people who just go against the grain just because. But having emotional intelligence is so important for the advancement of our society and our people, because somebody has to be able to make those decisions with as much of a healthy, sane, rational mind as possible. So when we think about emotional intelligence, the concept of emotional intelligence, or EQ, was introduced in 1990 by psychologists Peter Salovey and John Mayer, who defined it as the following. So emotional intelligence means that you have the ability to perceive emotions, that is, to accurately recognize emotions in yourself and others as they are occurring. So for example, if me and Dr. Pitts were having a conversation and Dr. Pitts says something I don't like, I identify I don't like that, I've gotten angry or frustrated, so now I know exactly what emotion I'm feeling. The ability to use emotions to facilitate thinking, that is, to guide you to issues that need your attention, such as if me and Dr. Chris are having a conversation She says something that makes me think of something that I'm like, okay, we need to address this. We need to have this conversation. The ability
I just thought I would provoke your thoughts. Go ahead. I wanted to give a real life example.
Yeah, you know what? The ability to understand emotions, their causes, meanings, and relationships to the thoughts and behaviors. So like when she just disrespectfully flashed that Cowboys keyboard thingy, I understand, and this cup, I understand that my emotions surrounded by the Cowboys and their fans.
Didn't I do a commercial? Good.
Yep.
I'm focused. Yeah.
You should do a Cowboys commercial, and it should be, here we are celebrating 27 years of not going to and the ability to manage emotions to attain specific goals, i.e., and I always use this, the difference between motivation and discipline.
Yeah.
So another way to think of emotional intelligence is through self-awareness, or the ability to recognize and understand personal moods, emotions, and drives. Self-management, the ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses and moods. Empathy, the ability to understand the emotional experiences and responses of others. And relationship skills, the ability to build rapport and manage relationships. All of these things kind of encompass what it means to have emotional intelligence. Now, why is that important for student athletes and athletes everywhere? This is important because any sport you play, no matter, we'll just take football, for example. Football is a quote unquote alpha male, just all manly, just everything all out war for 60 minutes, right? Of physical onslaught, of physical punishment, pain, and just some people would say torture for 60 minutes during a game. But any football player will tell you, every single coach they've ever had says the same exact thing. Football is 90% mental and 10% physical. Football games are won or lost in the film room, in the study room. Now that final 10% is the physical piece, where you go out there and actually practice and model and actually do the things that you were talking about. But football games are won or lost in film rooms, in study rooms, in planning rooms. That's where games are won or lost. And it is important not only for coaches, but for athletes to have some type of emotional intelligence about themselves. I'll give you an example of somebody not having great emotional intelligence. I've shared this story before. One of my teammates, 2013, championship banquet, him and the other team's quarterback got into a verbal squabble, and it turned into a physical altercation. Both of them in that moment displayed poor emotional intelligence, because their personal strife, their personal vendetta, whatever little beef they had accumulated in literally 3 minutes of being in a bathroom with each other, to them, that self-management, that ability to control or redirect their disruptive impulses and moods, they did not have great practice of that in that moment. And because of that, two teams lost out on the chance to win a championship and go to the playoffs.
That is so crazy. Did y'all beat them both down? Okay, I know you might not be able to say that.
Well, so our teammate actually had to, spend the night in jail, so he didn't get to come back with us.
Oh shoot, it was like that. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think there was anything we could have done worse than that in that moment, to be left 3 hours behind, in a random county jail. Not that we intentionally left him behind. We just didn't have no choice, like.
Yeah, no, that's real.
I mean, so, but when we think about, especially for athletes all the time, and you hear coaches say this all the time, you have to learn how to manage yourself and coach yourself just as much as you have to learn how to be coached by a coach or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, you are an individual. Whether you play a team sport or an individual sport, you are a representation not only of yourself, but your family, your school, university, whatever the case may be, or your professional team. How you handle yourself on and off the field, on and off the court, all boils down to your emotional intelligence, being aware of your situations, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of everything that you do. We see so many times, and I think oftentimes, as much as athletes maybe struggle with sometimes emotional intelligence on the field, far too many times we see where athletes really have their downfalls is when their emotional intelligence isn't practiced or displayed at the highest level off the field or off the court. We see, I mean, just this past season alone, we've seen numerous NFL players lose their careers in a matter of moments.
Yeah.
Because of just poor emotional intelligence, not being aware of their surroundings, not being aware of what they're doing or putting in their bodies or the situations they're putting them or other people in.
Right.
And because of that, they've lost out on careers, or they lost out on opportunities or contracts or anything like that. All because of maybe choosing self in a wrong moment.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, being selfish, not being self-aware, not having good self-management or empathy or relationship skills. When you have a breakdown in all those areas, you are bound to make more, maybe not so good decisions.
Mm-hmm. Ronnie, I want to touch on that because I think that it's really important for our audience to understand that these behaviors are learned.
Yes,
they are absolutely positively learned. And 99.9% of the time, I think it's fair to suggest that those behaviors are learned from your family of origin. They're learned in your nuclear family. They're learned in your community, and they're not properly addressed. You know, too often times throughout our lives, we've heard the term angry Black woman syndrome or angry Black man syndrome. And we hear things like, well, you know, I have anger management issues. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is anger is a secondary emotion, right? So what's under that? What is the mass of the iceberg, if you will, of those core raw emotions that are adversely impacting your ability to increase your tolerance for frustration? And your lack of tolerance for frustration is what contributes to your inability to self-regulate your emotions, which is why your EQ is so low. Little kids throwing temper tantrums, you know, turn into children who throw temper tantrums, who turn into adolescents through temper tantrums, who turn into adults who throw temper tantrums. And at the end of the day, people don't want to take the time to regulate their emotions because, and we hear it all the time in this work, right? You justify. You just made me, and I'm going to say it the way I feel it, but I'm going to sort of filter it a little bit. One of the things that I caught a visual of one time, Ronnie, I was actually in session, I said this to a client, but I gave a disclaimer so that they wouldn't think I was being disrespectful to them. But I said, when do we, and I'm saying we, Ronnie, because I used to be that person who I had no self-discipline, I had no self-control. You was going to catch these hands. You were going to catch these hands, and I was laying on of hands until I was 25 years of age. But here's the deal. When are you going to stop being an emotional prostitute to whoever it is that has your code, to whoever it is that's punching your buttons, to whoever it is, or whatever it is that's triggering you? A big part of improving your emotional intelligence is learning to identify what your triggers are, what your stressors are, and doing a better job on purpose and intentionally of learning how to manage them. Because as Ronnie indicated, there will come a point in time where the consequences that you face in response to your inability to regulate your emotions, the consequences could be life altering. And that was determining factor for me. I was facing jail time. I was facing a criminal record for laying on of hands because I had zero self-discipline and I had zero self-control. And what I came to realize, Ronnie, is that there were people in my life who banked on the fact that Lauren was going to go left. They knew that if they pushed the right button, guaranteed I was flicking all the way off. I used to black out, like would have no recollection of anything that I said or did. I would black all the way out and I would lay on of hands and come back to my senses, having left a wake up. Adam tore up some stuff, including people. But a Judge David Shep, Judge David Shep on the bench in Southern New Jersey, he presented me with some consequences that were encouragement to me, Ronnie. They encouraged me because I had been court mandated to anger management 3 separate times. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm about to lose everything. I'm about to lose. Look, Ronnie, I'm about to lose everything, including my child, if I don't learn how to master some self-control and some self-discipline. So this is what I say, and then I'll pass it back to you. You have bear pokers in your life. Bear pokers are a stressor. Bear pokers are a trigger. And this is what I say to folks. You do know that bears will maul you to death. Leave people alone. Leave people alone. Stop getting off on being a bully. Stop getting off on being an emotional pimp. Stop getting off on messing with folks just because you can, because people will hurt you. People will hurt you.
Oh yeah, hurt people,
and they'll hurt you because you don't know people's backstory. You don't know what people's trauma is. You don't know what people are dealing with in life. You don't know what it's going to take to cause somebody to snap, because somebody could actually have a high level of emotional intelligence. But every person has a breaking point. And bear poking is dangerous. Bear poking will get you killed.
Oh yeah. And while you were talking, something else I was thinking about when we think about emotional intelligence is in I think this has been a detriment in sports for a while. And I think there has to be a fine line in how you police it. But one of the things I also see oftentimes too, and you hear this a lot, sometimes we can allow a student athlete's talent to overshadow character flaws. And
you've said that before.
We see that far too many times. And sometimes it's perpetuated and exacerbated by the very adults who are supposed to be managing that and helping them fix that. Whether it's the coaches, whether it's their parents, teachers, whatever the case may be. Oftentimes we'll see, a kid who athletically, God-given talent. Like, there's certain things you can't teach in sports. You can't teach size and you can't teach speed. And when you see a kid have that, especially when you see a kid coming from, maybe a family or an environment that might not be the most conducive to producing a productive human being if they didn't have sports. While that's not an excuse, we see that a lot. And when we see kids come from these areas, or not necessarily those areas too, they come from a middle-class family or even good family. When we see a kid that has, really good athletic ability, sometimes we'll allow that to shadow their character flaws that they develop. And to your point, it's funny, I was having this conversation with some of my teammates a couple weeks ago. And they were talking about how, how much influence do parents really have on kids? Because we know that, and we know this, we always say, by the time a kid gets to about 11 or 12 years old, typically middle school age, a parent's influence and voice decreases dramatically. Now, while that is a natural stage of human development, where you get to, from the first about 11, 12 years of your life, you kind of have concrete thinking, or a one mind way of thinking, meaning that you really only kind of listen to yourself. Like whatever opinion you come in your head, you're going to kind of stick with that over anything else, because why would I believe you? Why would I go against myself? As they get older, they start to listen to other people, which is typically their friends, because how my friends view me is more important than how my parents view me. Once again, a natural part of development. We all go through it. But one of the things I wanted my teammates to kind of understand, and I think people need to understand this, when push comes to shove, when you are in fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, when you are in any of those moments, you will more times than not resort back to what you know. And what you know is what you saw growing up in the environment you were raised in, the people you were raised around.
That old nature.
And far too many times, we see where when a kid's athletic ability starts to shadow their character flaws, we see where these kids become collegiate athletes. And, far too many times we've seen, just for example, the University of Florida back in the day, the whole Aaron Hernandez story and everything.
Yeah.
We saw where Aaron Hernandez, after watching his documentary and stuff, obviously there were some character flaws that had not been addressed when he was a teenager, when he was a little kid and things. Once again, obviously, Florida's looking at it like, well, it's not our responsibility to fix a broken child. However, if you're going to exploit and use that child for his athletic abilities, it is also your responsibility to help this child mature into a young adult who's going to be a productive citizen in the world, because you are exploiting him for your personal gain and prize.
Yeah.
But you also overlooked a lot of his character flaws. There were reports of him getting in trouble while he was at Florida, whether it was fights, shootouts, whatever the case may be. There were obviously some character issues that he had displayed. But the school was like, he's scoring touchdowns every Saturday. He making Tim Tebow look good. He making the team look, he making Urban Meyer look good. He making us look good. So why are we going to say something?
Blind eye.
Hey, look, as long as he don't go out here and kill nobody or, do something crazy, which oddly enough, as long as he don't do nothing like that, he'll be all right. We see that so many times. Now, granted, part of me gets conflicted at times. And I'll say this, I get conflicted because we see when a kid has very good athletic ability and athletic talent, and it should be highlighted and it should be allowed to be, shown and displayed on the highest stages possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be an opportunity for that kid to change not only his future, but his family's future as well. Mm-hmm. Should have the opportunity. But where do we draw the line in that opportunity for character issues and character flaws that are not addressed? Right. And when we see a kid in an environment or around adults who are strictly just exploiting this child for their personal gain, where do we draw the line at for that? Because if somebody draws a line for this kid and say, well, look, hey, I can't help you for how you got to this point, but I can't let you go any further. Mm-hmm. Once again, when a kid's emotional intelligence isn't properly, addressed or trained, hey, look, obviously self-management and how they're going to respond impulsively and stuff like that is going to be out the window. And at that point, it's really a ticking time bomb. So I know you were getting ready to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add into that, because when you said that, it reminded me what we see every year during the NFL draft. The commentators, they always give their analysis of the athlete, right, as they're getting selected. Mm-hmm. And when the information about their character flaws, when the information about their behavior and these sorts of things is public knowledge, they talk about it. They talk about so they definitely talk about it when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, because one of the things that Jerry Jones is known for is sort of
keeping a convict or two on the roster,
coaching folks up or attempting to coach folks up. But he has, as far as the media is concerned, Jerry Jones has a reputation for drafting players that have issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I say is, I think, truth be told, I own my stuff, but I also believe in keeping it real, in that there's plenty of teams out there. And particularly as of late, within the past few years, we've been hearing about it more and more and more with these teams. And I think what bothers me, and we're not going to go off on this because that's a show in and of itself. I think what bothers me is, more times than not, we hear when it's the Black players that are having some sort of issue. Mm-hmm. And I find it hard to believe, with 32 teams and 52 people on the roster, or each team, that it's only the Black players who get in trouble.
I think part of that boils down.
I could be wrong, but I think it's unrealistic statistically.
Well, I will say, when you look at like the racial breakdown of rosters, I think it's safe to say that I think all 32 NFL rosters are predominantly Black. I would say at least 60% of them are African American, makeup of their roster. So I think that when you think of, like, if I had to pull a name out of a hat for each NFL team, what are the chances of me pulling a Black player's name out?
That's real.
I like my chances. It's kind of, it's kind of the same unfair notion we get with, when it comes to community violence and stuff like that. Yeah. What do we always hear in the news? Oh, well, you got all these Black people killing each other. Well, hell, if my community is nothing but Black people, I'm probably, if I choose to do that, chances are it's going to be a Black person. Again. Yeah. Just like if you were to pull the numbers on white communities, if all I see is white people around me and I have an issue with a white person and I want to kill them, guess what? That's white on white.
Look, chances are the home invasion was committed by a white person.
Exactly. But to your point, and I think that's a systemic, notion and a stigma and a stereotype that's been passed down. Like we talked about when we were talking about, two-parent homes.
Yeah.
You would think. I bet if you were to do a random poll, go out on the street and ask random people, who do you think has more two-parent households, Black or white families?
They're gonna say white.
I'll bet all my checks they're gonna say white people. And when you show the numbers, they're gonna be like, oh,
these numbers are look, this fake news.
just like, and I don't, this is not my place to speak on this, but from the outside looking in, when we talk about abortion and stuff, if you to go around and ask people, well, who do you think these abortion laws are for? I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure 2/3 of people will say it's about people of color. When in all reality, no, it's about white people. White people are terrified of not being the majority no more. And it's coming. And it's coming faster than they anticipate. So they're putting I'm not going to go into a tangent, but they're doing all these things systematically to try and preserve themselves. So we're going to take a quick, we're going to put a pin in that one because we have our special guest here today, y'all. We were talking about it earlier. So this gentleman right here is a force when it comes to using his words for change and empowerment. We have Mr. Sanyika, the Firestarter Street, with us today, joining us on House Talk Pregame. Sanyika, thank you for joining us, man. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm exceptional. It's good to see y'all. Thank you for having me.
No problem, man. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, man.
Yes.
So,
happy Saturday.
I know you kind of joining us on the tail end of my show, but we're gonna jump right in with you, man. So first of all, how's everything going? I know you on the West Coast, man. So how's it going on the West Coast today?
Oh man, it's a beautiful day. I'm originally from the East Coast. So I'm originally from DC. So
the city, baby.
For sure. But trust me, I don't miss the humidity, and I don't miss, so the sun is out, so it's a beautiful day.
The humidity has been disrespectful on this side of the country, but I can tell you right now, it has been disrespectful at all hours of the day and night. But so Sanyika, for those who have never heard of you or don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. You say you're from DC, so trying to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what you do for a living today, man.
For sure, man. For sure. First of all, I just want to say again, thank you for having me. It's really awesome to be here with y'all and to be connected to your community, to what it is that you all are creating. I am a graduate of an HBCU. I played basketball at UMES, Maryland Eastern Shore, and I'm a lifelong athlete. So I feel like I'm home. So this is a beautiful space to be in. So for those people who do not know me, my name is Sanyika. I am also known as the Firestarter. I am a men's performance coach and a speaker and an inspirational spoken word storyteller. And one of the really powerful things that, in terms of the work that I do, like my personal mission, especially through the work that I do, is to see every single Black man reach his infinite potential. I want to see him. I want to see men shine. I want to see Black men shine. I want to see men rise into the greatness that they might not even be able to see for themselves. And generally speaking, that's where I come in as a coach, because a lot of people, it's challenging for us to see the greatness that lies on the other end, on the other side. And so my job is to help people to see a powerful, inspiring vision of their future so they can step into the greatness that they may not have known even existed. And one of the reasons why I do this is because that is what mentorship and coaching did for me. It literally transformed my life. I would venture to say it saved my life. So I'm, like I said, I'm from DC. I moved out to LA 16 years ago, but about 7 years ago, I like to start from that point, because I feel like I was in a rock bottom sandwich, and I call it a rock bottom sandwich because I was already at rock bottom, and then rock bottom smashed on top of me. It was like an Oreo cookie, and I was the filling. You know what I'm saying? It was like, I was financially broke, emotionally broken, 2 DUIs, girlfriend paying the bills, 40 pounds overweight. My life is a mess. I'm making I'm 42 now. I was making $11 an hour, just trying to figure out where my life went. And the interesting thing about it is that at the lowest point in my life, I felt alone. I felt lost. I felt I pretty much had lost all belief in myself. And then that's when I joined. That's when I really stumbled into mentorship. That's when I stumbled into it, community and mentorship. And it's interesting about the point where you lose belief in yourself, because Les Brown has a quote. He says, sometimes when you need to believe in somebody else's belief in you until your belief is strong enough to kick in.
That's right.
And that is definitely what happened with me. And, and from that point, I went from, being broken to pretty much breaking records in every aspect of my life, so it's been a really inspiring journey. And part of my intention is to as a former athlete, as a, college athlete, but as a, lifelong athlete, I don't think you ever lose, you never lose it. You put me on a basketball court, it'll be a scene. Just pray for the people I'm playing against. but other than that, the idea is that I think for many men, and the reason why my work focuses on men is because I feel like when you amplify and you help a man reach his full potential, the positive impact affects everyone. It affects the women in his life. It affects the children in his life. It affects everything. So that is my personal intention, and that is my mission. So I do that as a coach, and I also do that as a speaker and a storyteller, and by inspiring crowds into reaching their full potential as well. So I think that's a good place to start.
Man, thank you for that, man. That was beautiful. Yeah. So my next question, man, and it ties right into our topic of emotional intelligence and everything. So you spoke about, your journey and things like that, and going back to 7 years ago as being your rock bottom moment. So I know, socially and culturally, the word emotional intelligence is kind of new amongst our society and things like that. So, now that you are where you are now, looking back, kind of talk to us about your personal journey of building your emotional intelligence, and why that you talked about it already, about why that's so important for not only men, but Black men. But kind of talk to us about your personal journey of finding emotional intelligence and working on your emotional intelligence to where it is today.
What a powerful conversation this is around emotional intelligence. Because I find myself in conversations with people about what emotion is and what emotion is not. Right. It's, some people, a lot of men are hesitant to come into awareness of their emotional, to become aware about what their emotions are. They think, oh, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm angry, like it's all those, it's like these fluffy words. It's like, I need to be in touch with my emotions. I'm like, listen, you can call emotions anything you want. Let me tell you exactly what your emotions are. The word, whatever the word is, happy, sad, angry, whatever it is a label for a chemical occurrence that is happening in your body, period. So you can call it roof. You can call sadness roof.
Yeah.
There are chemicals running through your body, adrenaline, epinephrine, cortisol. There are dopamine. There are chemicals running through your body. And so we label so there's a chemical cocktail, an occurrence when you come into some type of stimulus. So when I come into something that makes me afraid, then there's a chemical cocktail occurring. When I come into something that makes me feel happy, there's a chemical cocktail occurring. When I come into something that makes me feel sad, there's a chemical cocktail. And if I am not aware of the chemical cocktail that is happening in my body, then I am a danger to myself and to others.
Yeah.
So the necessity around emotional intelligence is not like, oh, you need to be aware that you're sad. You need to be aware that you're happy, because this is all about you. Look, it's about understanding that there's a chemical cocktail, and what some people are not aware, the moment where the chemical cocktail becomes dangerous is when you are is when you are in a state of depression and you self-isolate, right? When you are a state of anger, which by the way, anger does not mean violent, but when you are in a state of anger and your energy is directed in a way that is violent, when you are in a state of sadness, or in a state of sadness, and you don't have the ability to articulate using language what it is that you are experiencing to your partner, and so you cheat on your partner, or you venture out on your partner because you don't know how to articulate what it is that you need, because nobody ever explained to you that you could navigate through this by understanding the language of what your emotional experiences of the world. I'm gonna stop right there. But the point is that there's a chemical cocktail occurring.
Man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Pitts.
So, man, we just love you. We just love you. And this is why this was so important for you. We already talked about you coming back and forth, but this is why this was so important to have you on for this show. Because when you think about emotional intelligence, and there was a reason why we labeled this show Check or Carry on Baggage, right? I want to, as we talked, in preparation for the show, I want you to link that to the discussions that you have and that we've had about the trauma and the normalization of the essence of the work that you do, and what that looks like within the context of all of this emotional baggage that not just Black and brown men are carrying, but us as Black and brown women too. And then, as you said, it goes on to our children, and then it morphs into our community and Hawaiian Yards. Can you speak to that and make that connection? And I didn't ask you, but I'm hoping that you'll give us, that you'll tease them a little bit, and give them a small segment of the N-word. If you don't want to, that's okay, I understand, because I didn't ask you ahead of time. But look, connect the dots on that for us, please, so that they can hear this powerful connection.
For sure. I'm down to perform the piece in whole.
Okay.
But what I wanted to do is I wanted to just sort of set the stage,
Do your thing.
And I wanted to just frame the conversation around what I think is really my personal beliefs on how we, checked or check bag or carry on.
Yes,
And we as people across every age, class, gender, race, we all experience some form of trauma. Right? We all experience some form of trauma. So here's the thing that happens with trauma, though, is that many of us consider trauma to be these massive occurrences, like big occurrences. We think of trauma in the context of like something big happening in my life, car accident, trauma, right? We think of, there's two types of injuries, right? Physical injury and emotional injury, all right? Generally speaking, we are not avoiding saber-toothed tigers and running from and trying to navigate lands that are inhabited by dangerous creatures primarily, right? There are people who are in violent situations on an ongoing basis, so I understand that. But generally speaking, on an ongoing basis, we're not avoiding in a large capacity, we're not avoiding, again, like saber-tooth tigers, that kind of thing. So physical injury is not the primary thing that we're in avoidance of, because of things like social media and technology and all of these other platforms that have now brought us to be able to interact with each other in a more in real time, at scale, at the lightning fast rate. What now we are in avoidance of is emotional injury. The majority of the trauma that we experience occurs from emotional injury. So what does emotional injury look like, right? Well, emotional injury does not just look like verbal abuse. The primary form of emotional injury is disappointment from unmet expectations.
Facts.
Just disappointment. Not getting the things that you needed, not getting the things that you, and then on a foundational level, not having access to the things that you really need. Right. So if there's things that I really need, meaning, financial resources, meaning love and connection and community, there's a significant amount of Black, brown people who are walking around without access to the things that they need. Right.
Yeah.
And so as a result of walking around with the things that without walking around with the things that they need, the way that we create sanity in our lives, right, is through something called confirmation bias. It's the way that we naturally navigate through the world. So we just confirm everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, right? We're confirming our beliefs every single time. So so same thing for me. When I was a kid, I used to think that it was okay that, there was days where we didn't necessarily have food in the refrigerator. I was like, yeah, it's just the way it is, right? It's just the way it is. That's really what it sounds like. It sounds like, oh, it's just the way it is. So we just normalize those things because that's what keeps us sane to some degree, right? So we normalize the trauma that we experience. We normalize the disappointment. We normalize the not havingness. We normalize the fact that we are in a relationship that we are not that we are not happy with. We normalize the fact that we are without the resources that we need. We normalize the fact that we're in a job that sucks. We normalize the fact that we're in a situation where we feel like we're not living our greatest, best, most, the highest vibration foundation of our lives. We normalize those things on an ongoing basis. So then the whole thing just becomes about normalizing it, right? We normalize the fact that we've had a bad back for the past 3 years and haven't gone to the doctor to get it fixed because, I just got a bad back. We normalize the fact that we can't get sleep because I just don't get sleep. And that's just the way it is. We normalize the fact that all of these different things, right? We normalize the fact that, I know I'm not eating necessarily the best foods or anything like that, but, I'm really, we normalize those things.
This is just the way I am.
Just the way I am, right?
What?
Just the way I am, right? But what if it's not? And what if it doesn't have to be? And then the wake-up call hit me around the things that I was normalizing, right? The things that I was normalizing, it just smacked me in the face. I started to see, because it hit me too. I grew up on North Capitol and W Street in DC, and we didn't grow up. My mother was raising 4 kids on her own, and we were not my mother raised communicators, but we didn't have a lot of the resources and the things that we needed, on an ongoing basis. I lived a great life, but the foundation is we just normalize certain things, right? And so when I came to the realization as an adult that I was normalizing certain things, the question is, well, what else am I normalizing? Right? What else am I making just okay because it's something that, that was, but something that I thought was all right, just because it was just the way that things are. It's just the way that things are. It's just the way that I am, right? Like you said. And then I had an interaction with a friend of mine. I made a post on Facebook. This is a few years ago. I made a post on Facebook. And then a friend of mine responded, and he was like, and I have he responded, and he was just using the N-word like the whole time in the post, in the comment. He was like, yeah, N-word, this and this and this, and he was just saying and all that kind of stuff like that. And I was looking at all the comments, and then I saw his, and I was like, why did he feel so empowered to use that? To say that. Me and my friends used to made a promise to ourselves like in early 2010, 11, that we wouldn't use the word with each other. And so we said we would not use the word with each other, the N-word with each other. And so the thing is that when I saw him using it, I sent him a message, right? I was like, I was gonna delete the comment, right? But I was like, but that would be me censoring him or whatever like that. I didn't want to do that. So I actually sent him a message on Instagram. I still got screenshots from the original message. And then I was like, yo, could you do me a favor and take down the post? Take down the comment, because, not only do I not think that that's a powerful representation of what I want to be about, I don't think that's a really powerful representation of you either, And so when I said that to him, it made me feel, I was like, did I just call my friend out for using the N-word? And then I was like, oh, snap. I was like, man, I have literally, I hadn't taken a stand until that point. I hadn't taken a real stand on it. I made a personal stand where I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to use it. But I hadn't connected the awareness. And what I realized is that I had normalized the use of the N-word until that moment. I had just normalized it. I normalized the use of the N-word. I normalized the use of it. And because of the fact that I didn't want to make it about me versus anybody else who was saying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. In this moment, it's not about me versus anybody else saying it either, right? But here's the one thing I was realizing. I was like, my personal belief is that it is a word that has no inherent value. There is no value in it. It doesn't make me blacker. It doesn't make me richer. It doesn't do, there's no benefit to it. However, when used in the wrong context or environment, even by a Black person, it could literally destroy everything.
It represents baggage.
Yeah, it represents baggage. Absolutely. So I was like, why has there been a normalization around this word? You know what I'm saying? Like, why?
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that the N-word is our Confederate flag in a sense?
Here's the thing I want to bring up, because I've had this conversation about that, the idea around it and around I think it, like the Confederate flag, I think that that's actually a really powerful framing of it. You know, it's like, that's actually a really powerful framing, because I've never heard it in that context before. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's the thing that we're holding on to because we have a right to do so.
To carry on baggage.
Right. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you know, I can do it. I can say it. You know, I have a right to do it. And they can't say it. White people can't say it. And so it creates this, it creates this sort of like reverse feeling of, you know, superiority, because I can use it and you can't use it. And if you use it, then I can check you on it or whatever like that. But my thing is that I don't believe it to be the most powerful representation of anybody who's using it, you know? And especially from an athletic standpoint, which is where we hear it, you know, predominantly, it's like in athletics and in music and everything like that, is that it's not something that brings us to a greater sense of connection with each other, you know? And especially because of the fact that there's a ton of athletes. I'm like, yo, you know, you're not the N-word. You're an athlete. Right. You're not the N-word. You are. What if you were not the N-word? What if you were an entrepreneur? What if you were a businessman? And the thing is that by allowing yourself to lock yourself into the idea that you are the N-word, right, on a subconscious level, which is the place that we say it, you don't allow yourself to soar, which is one of the reasons why it doesn't create the exploration about who you could be, right? Yo, I could, you know, how many, I don't even know what the stats are, but after this, I will definitely look them up, about how many athletes who leave athletics and who fall into depression. How many, we already know the stories about the people.
Oh, it's well over 40%.
Yeah, absolutely.
The stats are high.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because, and the thing is that I'm not saying it's because of the N-word. I'm saying that is a microcosm of the fact that there's not an exploration into the possibility of who you could be. Is that we're just settling for the normalization of who other people think we are, and those types of things. So when I was, so the idea was, if my intention is to see people reach their greatest potential, personally, Sanyika's intention to see his greatest potential, but to help men reach their greatest potential, then I got to do something about this personally.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where I wrote a piece called The N-Word. And I wrote the piece, I wrote a spoken word piece, and then I was like talking to people about it. And I told you, Dr. Pitts, I said, after I wrote it, I didn't want to do anything with it.
Right. Right.
I didn't want to do anything with it.
It's like, oh, now what I do?
Yeah, because I realized that the intention of the piece is to wake up people, and many of the people who would be angry at me for writing the piece would be the exact same people that I am looking to wake up. And then as soon as I heard myself say that to myself, I was like, oh man, I was like, that actually means I need to write that. That means I need to do something with it.
Gotta come out your comfort zone and deal with it.
Exactly, right. So I need to come out my comfort zone, see what's on the other side of possibility, and then actually and do something with it. And so I'll perform the piece, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what the intention is with the piece from this point moving forward. Y'all down here?
Yeah, down here, absolutely. Please.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We're ready when you are.
And I'll just say that, you know, the intention of the piece is directed at my brothers. So this is really a conversation with my brothers. My brothers, Before we get into any discussion, I'm taking a second to let you know that I love you. You are Earth's original peoples, capable of anything, and your reflection, the essence of a king. That's why in this moment, I am still conflicted, self-restricted from using a single word because of the pain it's inflicted. This word is a virus bubbling up inside us, a word that we reverse, but in reverse is where it guides us. And I guess that's what surprises me. That's why I'm triggered when a brother who loves his brother is calling his brother a nigga. You called your brother a nigga? You called your brother a nigga? Would you call your mother a nigga? Nah, I didn't figure. And the fact that you won't use it on the one that gave you birth is what makes the explanation that it's harmless even worse. If it's such a loving term Black people have accepted, why won't you use the term with the woman you respected? I mean, I've been a lot of places. There may be something I'm forgetting, but I've never seen it used at a wedding. Eyes locked, holding hands with your significant other. Would you say the N word to inspire your baby's mother? Tell your daughter you loved her. Tell your grandmother and grandfather that this is the freedom of yours they fought for. It's fine, because we say it all the time. They call this niggas while picking cotton. You want your cotton picking mine? And best believe I used to use it. I said it with ease. On second thought, dog, I abused it. I had a disease. I told brothers that we should lose it. Brothers disagreed. They said it's a term of endearment. They'd be like, nigga, please. So I'm calling my brothers niggas, not calling my niggas brothers. Hold up. Why is the only time we niggas with each other? Brother to brother, are you afraid others will judge you if when you see me, instead of nigga, you just said I love you? And it's a complicated history from movies, music to comedy. Black entertainers said the word with love and affection, but it's become a mystery because through movies, music, and comedy, other races abuse turn Black wounds into an infection, and we fight for the right to say it. But we're not fighting for a future that determines if it's really right to say it. And who am I to say enough? Who am I to bring it up? Who's this nigga asking those niggas to give it up? I am. One of your brothers is the reason I'm invited. I am. A man who speaks the truth even if you don't like it. I am. A way the transformation happens in stages. The first step is the awareness there's no benefit to say it. Screw acceptance. We go from it's okay to it's outrageous. Because they call brothers niggas before they lock them up in cages. They call Black fathers niggas so they can't make better wages. So I'm only using words that bridge a brother to his greatness. My camera was broken, but now I get the picture. There's a much bigger audience using the word nigga. So when I say brothers, it's brothers of all persuasions. My brothers, Black and Latinos, from Caucasian to Asian, in every city and state, every country and continent. The N-word is a problem all over the friggin' place, and words like nigga live in all genders, races, religions. A word you may feel is freedom, for someone else is a prison. So what I'm trying to teach you is a lesson I was given. The words that you choose, words you abuse. The words that you use create the world that you live in. Nigga means ignorant. It doesn't make us better men. Can't put it at the end of your name to go practice medicine. It doesn't make you richer, healthier, or Blacker. It does not improve the chances of making Black lives matter. And if Black lives matter, my niggas, here's what I'm asking. Why would I call you nigga when your righteous name is Black man? Originals, brothers, sophisticated or gutter, I am only using words that will show my brother I love you, and the love runs so deep I am willing to take this stand for the brothers that will sit and try to make me the villain. I'm the tattoo remover here to get it off your chest. It'll sting a little bit. Brothers, this is my request. I am asking you to rethink your words. I'm not calling you out. I am calling you for words. Stop using the word nigger. And what to call your brother other than the N-word is only one thing. If that man's really your brother, only thing that you should call him is a king.
Man, it's crazy. When I heard it the first time on the audio that you had sent us, it was powerful, listening to it. But to hear you speak those words live, it just gave me chills, because everything you said, everything you led up to, speaking your piece about, ties into everything we talk about on the show on a weekly basis. Is, we always talk about, and Dr. Pitts said, to one of your points earlier, Dr. Pitts used to always say, we give moments meaning, we give things meaning. And, when it comes to emotional intelligence, one of the things we always talk about, and I preach this to everybody I come across with, we are the true authors and illustrators of our life. whether or not you had that author or illustrator in your life as a child to show you how to paint a picture about yourself, it is your responsibility as an adult to find that paintbrush and make your own strokes to create your life that you want to see. When you talked about the identity of the N-word and things like that, it's no different than the identity of a student athlete. When you encompass the identity of a student athlete and that's all you feel like you can be and all you will be, then you will sell yourself short every single time. As Black men, when we see ourselves nothing but the N-word, we put a limit on ourselves that we know is a contradiction to everything we believe in, everything we know who we truly are, everything that we truly can be as a people and individuals. That word puts a limit on us. And I mean, you know, and as a biracial man, I appreciate you sharing that, because it, to your point, so many people across the world use and abuse that word. And, you know, honestly, the thought in my mind just popped up, like, is the N-word really our Confederate flag? Like, we hold on to that word so near and dear to our hearts all the time. And man, I just thank you for sharing that, you know, live with us, because it's a conversation. Like you said, you're a fire starter, man. And, you know, it's a conversation that we have to have, and that we have to really, you know, have amongst ourselves and amongst our people, because we're so much more than just the N-word. We're so much more than just athletes or rappers or entertainers or anything like that. We're so much more than all of that. The identity of ourself is so powerful, but we put the identity of any other material thing on us, and we wear that with pride and proudness, when in reality, no material thing can ever make us feel whole, like feeling whole with yourself, having that self-awareness, that emotional intelligence to know that I am enough as me. Yeah. And whatever that encompasses. So Sanyika, I really appreciate you sharing that, man. I could listen to that over and over again, and no matter how many times I listen to it, it has the same impact and power on it every single time. So thank you for sharing that, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for that synopsis on that, man, because that is, we limit ourselves. And here's the thing. We don't do it on purpose, right? We don't do it on purpose. We're not like trying to keep ourselves down per se, right? It is because of whatever we are afraid of on the other side, right? And I will just, you know, so I really appreciate that, Ronnie, and I appreciate the framing of it around the idea of like the Confederate flag, like holding on, the thing that we're holding on to, that, you know, because we can hold on to it. And my intention is stop fighting over the flag and fight for your future. That's you right. know, it's like there is a I didn't even know. I'm telling you, I didn't even know I could be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that. I didn't even know I could be, like, honestly, I didn't know I could be like a husband and a father. You know, I have two sons. I have my first son, and I have a newborn. My first son, I met him when he was 7. So, and you know, I mean, I didn't know I could be any of those things, you know. But the idea is like, what if I break away from the constructs of what I was holding on to and actually allow myself to step into a new possibility? And then if I need some support to move through that new possibility, then I can find some people that can help me see the way. And that's really what the intention of this is, you know? So thank you for that, Ronnie. I really appreciate that.
Good time flies. So I'm going to reiterate, and I know we'll talk about this offline, Sanyika, about having you on next season as your schedule permits, because you are super duper busy. But we need to get you on.
Look, we got 2 months, man. We're gonna have to get you on here, man. It's like, man,
we'll work that out. When we think about this whole idea of emotional intelligence within this context of checked baggage or carry-on baggage, the metaphor there is that the carry-on baggage is it's baggage such as the N-word. It's the trauma, right, that we've normalized, that we're carrying with us from relationship to relationship to relationship, that we're carrying on with us through life, and it's eroding our sense of self. It's diminishing the quality of life. It's diminishing the quality of relationships that we have with others. It's eroding the moral fiber of our communities. It's eroding who we are as a people. And then when you look at the checked baggage is the metaphor for what it looks like when we're healed, what it looks like when we no longer use the N-word, what it looks like when we no longer normalize the trauma, what it looks like when we own the stuff that has hurt us, and as you said, given us these chemical responses that are causing all of our senses to go bat-esque crazy on the inside of us, that's leading to emotional outbursts, that's leading to aggression, that's leading to domestic violence, that's leading to substance use and abuse, that's leading to driving under the influence, that's leading to, you know, screaming and yelling and hooping and hollering at your children and shattering the very essence of their soul because you haven't checked your own baggage. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough. We told you when we met with you last week that we're adopting, we're keeping you now. You're part of us. We're going to do this darn thing. And we know that you are leaving a phenomenal footprint on the nation, but also on the world, because we're everywhere. We're everywhere. And I just want to thank you so very much. And I, you know, as I said, as we said when we met with you last week, anything and everything that we can do to support your mission, to support your cause, to make sure that you have access to every platform that we have access to, that you have access to every voice that we have access to. You said something powerful, and I want to give it a term that I don't think that anybody's ever heard me say on the show. When we talk about connecting with people that are instrumental in helping us to check that baggage and to heal and to stop normalizing, they're partners in believing. They're partners in believing that, but that's part of what we have to check too. We have to check our old belief systems that have led us to normalize all of this stuff. Go ahead.
I want to speak to this partners in believing thing because this is really powerful. I want to tell you what the normalization looks like in my world, right? Because this is the part where I didn't get it yet. I recently I have guys that I run through a mastermind, some guys that I coach in a mastermind, and we went through this process called the initiation. And initiation is a rite of passage. And my personal belief is that every man needs to go through a rite of passage. And the only rite of passage that men go through is not from boyhood to manhood. We go through different rites of passage throughout the course of our lives, right? From being single to being in a relationship, from being, you know, without children to being with children, to being responsible for yourself, to becoming a leader of others. Like those are different initiations that we go through. And one of the most powerful components of this process that we went through last week was one of the protocols was make 100 phone calls. 100 phone calls. And to clean, to create, and to clean up relationships, to cultivate relationships, and to create new relationships. And one of the things that I realized is that I have a whiteboard I'm looking at beyond the camera and on this big wall. And one of the things I realized is looking at the 100 names, I can see some of the people who I kept in my universe that I was still trying to save.
Say that. That's right.
I'm looking at it right now. I see the savior, right? And my belief is that you can do the exact same act with a different intention and get an entirely different result, right? And so there's a difference between being a savior and making a sovereign choice, right? Like I can help somebody, but not with the intention of saving them and pulling them from where they need to be. I can call them forward and I can challenge them, you know? I can challenge them to step into their greatness. I can, you know, without having the feeling like I need to drag someone, because the reality is that it brings you some form. There's a benefit, which is the reason that you're doing it, right? So the reason that somebody doesn't want to give up heroin isn't because it's like it's bad for you. Like there's a benefit to it. That's why they're doing it, right? There's a reason that they're doing it. There's a benefit associated with it. So the idea is that there was a benefit even in the moments. I've done all types of work and still see the savior in me with certain people, and I was like, oh. It's time to create a separation from certain individuals.
Yeah. Gotta shake the tree.
Shake the tree. And so the thing is that the thing that the environment that we have created around us that keeps us in this perpetual cycle of normalizing where we are currently at is, you can see it reflected through the individuals in your universe, in your community. It's usually not the haters. It's usually the people that's in your house. It's usually the people you see on the weekends. It's usually the first 5 people that you call in your phone. And they're not holding you back from a state of malice. It's just that they're perpetuating the same vision that you have of yourself, and y'all continue to perpetuate the same cycle for yourselves. That's the biggest issue. So when we talk about this normalization, checking your baggage, like I've checked I'm looking at it present in the current state that I am currently in, and I still see it. And I was like, oh, you know what? Got it. And I get to make some powerful decisions as a result of it.
That's right.
And so we all get to move through this. So I'm inviting you in this context to move through it. So, and I just wanted to bring that out as a real-time example of something that brought me to awareness of baggage I needed to check.
Yeah. So you could please tell our audience how to get in touch with you, how they can follow you on social media, how they can work with you. Are you only working with men that are in California? Can they access your programs virtually? Please give them all of that information.
Got it. Best way to reach me is CEO at the All In CEO. THE All In CEO. That's the name of my coaching platform. It's called the All In CEO. And by CEO, I'm not just talking about men that are who are entrepreneurs or guys who run businesses, but men that are looking to become the CEOs of their life.
That's good.
So that's that's the coaching platform. I have a very specific ask.
Okay.
A very specific ask. I would like anyone who is listening to this to email me. Anyone at an HBCU, and that goes for any HBCU, even my own UMES, to send me an email and to invite all 6'8" of my Black ass to come and to speak to their incoming student body and to their athletes, and to do a workshop for those schools. That is my only ask. If you want to talk to me about working together, stuff like that, send me an email. We can talk about that. But the idea is that that is my very specific ask. If you are at an HBCU, I do tons of workshops for students. And my invitation to you is very specific. It is to invite me into your universe to have this conversation with your students. So my question to you is not necessarily just you guys, but we've been in communication, but to anybody else who is watching this, will you issue an invitation? So because I would love to explore it and to see if it's a good fit and show up. If you think this is powerful, virtual, put me in a room. Just put me in a room. Give me a microphone. Give me some time, and we'll make some magic happen.
We're going to make this happen, man.
Definitely. We are, and I want to say, I stay calling folks to action. I love, we love absolutely what you're doing, and when we talked the other day when we met about the broader vision. I want to see you in front of the NFL, the NBA, and the NBL too, because our Black and brown boys are growing up to be Black and brown men, and some of them, as Ronnie and I were talking for the show, 60% of the leagues are us, right? And there's a lot of carry-on baggage that we're seeing and hearing, and we're hearing a lot about it on the news, but how much carry-on baggage is going on that's not making the news? There's a lot of it, and you need to be in front of them too. So we're gonna promote that. We're gonna push that. We're going to do everything that we can to help you to get in front of those leaders as well. Look, folks, we are out of time. We are over time, but it's my show. I can do that.
Man, Sayika, thank you again, man, for joining us. We definitely got to get you back on in the new season, man. But thank you again. Continue doing the great work that you've been doing for everybody out there. And like we said, man, join us again next week as we wrap up our season 2. And everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay cool. We'll talk to you later.
Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day
to you as well, Sayika.
To you as well.
Thank
Happy
you.
for
Father's
having
Day,
me.
everybody. Thank
Truly a
you. Have a
pleasure.
good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.